Take a deep breath for me. Hello, I'm Kwan Siu. Chapter 5, Kink-y, 31st March 2022, Thursday. I was awakened by an unsettling gnawing pain, almost like a creature was pounding its way out of my belly. I could not ascertain exactly where it was coming from, but it was gradually flooding the right side of my abdomen. I tried to stay in the fetal position, but the pain kept me wriggling. When I opened my eyes, everything was a blur. I could hear Yoda, totally beside himself, trying to find out what went wrong. Unfortunately, no one in the ward knew what happened at the OT. On paper, I was sent to the OT for standing, but did that happen? Something was not right. But at that moment, I didn't care. I wanted the pain to stop. A significant delay occurred during my admission this morning. I was rushed to the OT immediately after my CT scan. I wasn't pleased with this unexpected development since, as far as I knew, we were supposed to await the CT scan result to determine the necessity of a stent. Dr. Dewell had met me at the entrance to the OT, sharing the news that the radiologist had found no obstruction in my urinary tract, leading us to consider cancelling the procedure. I was highly elated with this news, but the mood shifted when Dr. Dewell received another call from the radiologist. There was an area below the kidney where the contrast disappeared and could not be seen from the scan. Dr. Dewell, known for his thoroughness, couldn't overlook this situation without a complete investigation. The CT scan had a few slices with missing contrast, and although there was no obstruction, my kidney was swollen. He had no choice but to perform a cystoscopy to investigate this mysterious anomaly. This time, I was more prepared for the OT, yet still apprehensive among all the strange faces. Fortunately, Dr. Guest was there with me, and I found solace in her presence as I tended to seek comfort in the familiar. When the procedure was over, I regained consciousness in the post-op area, but my alertness was minimal. Dr. Dewell appeared blurry beside me, holding a black and white image, explaining that he had identified the issue. Despite my efforts to stay awake and listen, I eventually succumbed to unconsciousness, only to be roused again upon reaching my room. Completely unaware of what transpired, I did not know whether a stent had been inserted into my ureter. One thing was clear, the pain was not going away. I was silently screaming inside, although I fought very hard to maintain some form of decorum. In my room, a flurry of activity ensued, but none of the nurses present seemed able to alleviate my distress. "Call Dewell," Yoda demanded. "He's in surgery," I whispered with my eyes shut, willing myself to go to sleep to escape this agony. I knew Dr. Dewell was occupied because my friend, Bailey, who was also under Dr. Dewell's care, was having a stent inserted too, and her procedure was immediately after mine. Even if I didn't know if he was in surgery, there was always the possibility that he could be, and I didn't want my phone call to be a distraction or a nuisance. "You have to tell him what is going on. How long do you want to be breathing like this?" Yoda was getting irritated. If he had Dr. Dewell's number, I believe he would be calling Dr. Dewell by now. "The nurses will know what to do. If necessary, they will call him," I replied, still naively thinking I could fall asleep with this pain persistently tormenting me. The nurses had cleared out of my room, but now I noticed my face was wet. I had been crying. Yoda had enough of my self-torture. He picked up my phone and shoved it in my face. "Call Dewell," he ordered. I didn't make the call, but sent a voice message. I was uncertain whether the nurses contacted him for instructions or if he received my message. But after what felt like hours, though it might have been just minutes, a nurse entered with a syringe containing a solution. Yoda inquired about it, but I didn't pay attention, and frankly, I didn't care. Exhausted beyond measure, all I wanted was to sleep. Gradually, the pain diminished, and I succumbed to a hazy state of being. Dinner came and gone. I could not muster the strength to eat. Suddenly, the door to my room flew open, and Dr. Dewell rushed in like a knight in shining armor, albeit without a horse. He was still in his scrubs and a little dishevelled. He came immediately from the OT to see me. I was moved beyond tears. If I was not so groggy, I would have leapt out from my bed to hug him and never let him go. He had never looked more like a superhero until this moment. The presence of the doctor was the beginning of the cure. However, there was the subject of not staying overnight at the hospital, which I had to bring up because this was supposed to be a day procedure and I did not pack to stay. At the conditions that you are in, I cannot let you go, he said firmly. I need to observe you for a while. Would the a while be a few hours or a few days? I shuddered at the thought. With that, he left, only to be back when he was smartly dressed. I was more alert now. He needed to explain to us what happened in the OT. He attempted to insert a stent, but could not proceed because halfway up my ureter, there was an unexpected sharp bend. To force it might threaten to dislodge my ureter. To see what was happening with the aid of fluoroscopy imaging, a fancy name for an X-ray movie, he had to inject contrast into my urinary tract that went all the way up to my kidney. The image that appeared was terrifying. While a normal ureter was connected to the side of the kidney and went down to the bladder, mine was twisted along the bottom of my kidney and then kinked sharply back before it made its way down, a condition which could only be congenital, and became more torturous over time from repeated infections. Although it was not obstructed, it did impede the outflow of urine, hence causing a build-up inside my kidney, a condition called hydronephrosis, which facilitated bacterial growth. The alarming concern now was that a considerable amount of contrast was injected into my kidney and it was not draining fast enough. My kidney had now bloated to the point of almost bursting, which explained the agonizing pain I was experiencing. The fastest way to drain build-up in the kidney was with a stent, but with the severe kink at my ureter, that was impossible. I could wait it out, hoping that it would slowly drain out in the next few days while on painkillers and antibiotics. For this evening, that was what we had decided to do. I feel bad about your condition because I was the one who instigated this and now you have to endure the pain, expressed a remorseful Dr. Dewey. You did what you needed to do, I replied blankly. Was I furious with the entire situation? Strange that I didn't feel anger despite all that had happened. Did I regret I let him carry on with the procedure? I didn't think about this until many months later when Dr. Dewey asked me this question. When he suggested that we proceed to investigate the anomaly, I had every right to stop him, but I didn't. Although he was the expert, I was not an ignorant patient. I signed my consent right before we entered the OT because I knew it was the responsible thing to do. Anger and regret were not emotions I was accustomed to. I had anxieties. I lived in the future. I didn't dwell on the past. I rarely waste time on confrontations and complaints. Instead, I preferred channeling my energy and focus to understand what needs to be done to fix a bad situation and hopefully prevent it in the future. But I injected so much contrast up your ureter, he carried on. Was he trying to invite me to punch him or something? Fixing my gaze on his build, I strongly believed I could. You didn't know, or have you suddenly developed X-ray vision? Then we didn't even need all those fancy equipment in the OT. When things go wrong for us, they should go wrong for both of us, quoted Sean Murphy, the good doctor. There was no point in bickering about this. I could only hope by morning the contrast would have drained out and I could go home. Dr. Dewey's response was vague and I was naive not to know this. 1st April 2022, Friday. What's up? I said. Dewey is keeping me here. I need clothes, disposable undies, and flip-flops. Vano said. We'll bring them this evening. With that settled, I started my day with a hearty breakfast and then I texted Bailey, hoping that she had a better standing experience than me. What's up? I said. How are you? Bailey said. In excruciating pain, not doing well. Bailey has been here at the hospital since a few days ago. For years, routine checkups indicated there was a cyst in her kidney, which seemed to be getting bigger. However, her last ultrasound a few weeks ago implied this was not a cyst at all, but a stone, which was baffling. If it was a stone and a massive one at that, it had to be removed before it caused an obstruction. I didn't hesitate to refer Dr. Dewey, of course, but just that Bailey had to fly 2,000 kilometers to see him, since the urologist she consulted with didn't give her sufficient confidence to handle her condition. She made the trip. After days of investigation, they discovered it was neither a cyst nor a stone. One of her calyxes had closed up, causing a slow build-up of urine in the kidney. The accumulation of minerals in urine inside the closed-up calyx mimicked a stone in scans. Dr. Devo had to find the thinnest area of the chamber and possibly a microscopic hole to blast it open and insert a stent to drain it. It was not an easy maneuver because he previously had a patient with the same condition, and they were not able to find it and had to abort the procedure. Bailey flew here without knowing what was in store for her, and she had made decisions along the way for what was best. I admired her courage and control, which was lacking in me when it came to issues of my own well-being. Even knowing this procedure might fail, she decided to go for it anyway. And fortunately for Bailey, it was a success. The chamber was blasted open and a stent was hooked successfully to the calyx, which was at the uppermost section of her kidney. Her agony started when she went to pee, and stone remnants began coming out. Ouch! I had been peeing out blood since I came back from my procedure, which was expected. Although there was no pain or discomfort during the process, I was given IV painkillers and antibiotics punctually around the clock. Dr. Devo didn't mention that I needed a stent, which was a relief. After what I heard from Wano and now Bailey, I dreaded being in the same situation. Dr. Devo just needed to make sure the contrast in my kidney came out. At one point, I felt great enough to demand to go home. After dinner, Wano arrived with reinforcements. We had a little catch-up at the cafe in the lobby since ward visiting regulations remained strict. I was having so much fun around good company, especially if they were Wano and her husband, and I was reluctant to go back to my room. I only realized I had missed my IV drips when I started to feel a gradual soreness in my lower back. Yet I kept quiet about it, lest Yoda found out and marched me back. However, my endurance level must have weakened because Wano pointed out I didn't look too well, and it was best I returned to my room for some much-needed rest. The pain had intensified. I needed Yoda to help me up from the chair, and I was limping to my room. Dr. Dewa was here earlier looking for you, a nurse at the nurse's station announced as soon as we entered the ward. Knowing him, if it was critical, he would call me. After he saw me twice today, I didn't expect him again, especially at this hour. My limping and holding on to Yoda didn't go unnoticed. Are you in pain? The nurse asked. A little, I replied guardedly, but I was in a lot of pain by the time I reached my room. As soon as I lay on the bed, the nurse quickly hooked me on the massive bottle of paracetamol. I could feel my body relax when it unfurled its magic. As I was lying there staring at the ceiling, I felt disconcerted. If I could not be free of the painkiller, the chances of me going home were a big, fat 0. 2nd April 2022, Saturday. In came Dr. Dewo, bright and early. Am I going home? I asked eagerly. I need to see you at my clinic later. After I show you your kidney, you will understand why I cannot send you home. He should not have mentioned that. Now my thoughts were in turmoil. What did my kidney look like now? I have a full clinic today, but my phone is always on. You can call me anytime, he assured me. After breakfast, there was a slight commotion outside my room. When the door opened, I saw a wheelchair parked right outside. Dr. Devo wants to see you at his clinic now, the nurse announced. I can walk. I didn't want to attract attention, and I didn't feel comfortable inconveniencing anyone. It is Dr. Devo's instruction. It is best that we follow. The nurse replied in a tone that signified the order was not to be challenged. I was about to walk out the door to the wheelchair when I suddenly noticed my attire. When Wano asked yesterday, I told her I would be most comfortable in t-shirts and shorts. She brought me a t-shirt with a giant cartoon character printed on the front, and her version of shorts turned out to be a man's boxer. I refrained from dwelling on whose boxer it might be and simply put them on, thankful for fresh clothes. However, I could not go to Dr. Devo's clinic dressed in an oversized t-shirt and a boxer with uncertain ownership. I asked for a robe to cover myself. Your kidney is still very distended, Dr. Dewo voiced his observation of the ultrasound scan. With the pain I was experiencing yesterday after the painkiller wore off, I was not surprised. However, I thought it might have improved a little. Now that I knew it didn't, I was a little disappointed. Considering my minuscule level of mental toughness, I should be very worried at this moment. However, the feeling didn't pop up. There was a sense of dread due to this unexpected outcome, but my anxiety level had reduced. Little did I know it was because I had yet to realize the severity of my condition. Come, let me walk you back to your room. I am going that way. Dr. Dewo joined us. As we entered the lift, I remembered I had a question for him. I should be able to take a shower without being surprised by a sudden intense pain attacking, right? You should be all right. Good, because I stink. Don't worry, I didn't smell anything. I am only sensitive to the smell of urine. Did I mention there were also strangers inside that lived with us? Upon reaching my room, I told Yoda he should go home. He was as surprised as I was with this decision. Ever since the discovery of Little Marble 4 years ago, I could not step foot in the hospital without him. I was frustrated with myself for being such a wimp. It was time to put an end to this and confront it. There was not much going on here for me except IV drips and ultrasound scans, for now. Yoda being here was just keeping me company and calming my anxiety. He had work commitments, and the children needed attending to. This was the unselfish thing to do. He left after he made sure I was all right. It was still early. He should reach home in time to take the kids to dinner. As the door closed behind him, my room suddenly fell into complete silence. There were no sounds of his phone consistently ringing, his voice talking on the phone, not even the infernal blares from the videos he loved to watch so much. It was a quiet that was deafening, an unavoidable nothingness. What had I done? I could still call him to come back, and he would do it because he knew my anxieties stemmed from many traumatic events from my past. Although he felt that most of the time I overthought myself into fear, he didn't dismiss my emotions. Instead of calling him, I took out my Kindle. Reading diverted my focus, which was the first thing I needed to do. Instead of worrying about Yoda not being here when my next anxiety attack happened, I got engrossed in the corporate espionage fiction I was reading. I managed to nap for about an hour before Dr. Dewo came. "Where is your husband?" He was surprised. I sent him home. I replied matter-of-factly. "Are you going to be all right on your own?" he asked. I wanted to scream. Was my anxiety so evident? "I will be fine," I answered decisively. Maybe I should have told him, no, I was not fine. He should come out here to keep watch in case I had gone cuckoo. "You had an infection even before we started your procedure. No wonder you were suffering so much after that," Dr. Dewo explained while looking at my urine culture and sensitivity, also known as UCS, test report. The urine culture test was performed to grow and identify organisms, mainly bacteria and fungi, that might cause urinary tract infection, also known as UTI. The antibiotic sensitivity test helped to select an appropriate antibiotic that was effective against specific types of bacteria or fungi causing the infection. However, the test took 3 days, which was why we only found out today. We need to discuss what should be done next if your kidney doesn't drain. I did not like where this was going. "We can insert a stent from the back," Dr. Dewo explained while gesturing to his lower back. "What? How?" I was beginning to feel the onset of panic. "It has to be done by the interventional radiologist. Due to the complex nature of your case, there is only one whom I trust to be able to do this for you, but he is not in this hospital. You don't need to be sedated, just local anesthetic. He will poke a hole with a microneedle from your back all the way to your kidney and insert the stent. It will be a fast procedure, should not take more than an hour," he explained. "That sounds painful, and I thought I didn't need a stent." I was almost crying now. "Even before this, your kidney was already swollen, and now we know why. You need a stent in there to drain it and possibly straighten the ureter. It will only be inside for a month, then we can remove it." Dr. Dewo was trying to reason with me. "However, we cannot do it here. The interventional radiologists here are not competent enough to handle your condition. The only person I trust to do this for you is at AMC, short for the Academic Medical Center." But this is just an option, right? We can still wait for the kidney to drain by itself, right? Yes, we can also try an injection which will flush out your kidney, but you might feel a sudden intense pain. No, I had no interest in knowing the rest. Anything that would lead to acute pain was a no-go. I will switch your antibiotic so that it can be converted to oral when you discharge. We will also remove the paracetamol so that we know if you are still having pain or fever, he explained. I was happy again. He was preparing me to go home, although he looked doubtful. I was pain-free throughout today. I was very sure it had gone away. Towards the evening, the area surrounding my IV cannulation had become painful and swollen. This condition was called phlebitis, and it could get serious if bacteria were introduced into the bloodstream. I almost bounced up from my bed when the nurse flushed my IV line. Being a smarter and more experienced patient this time, I demanded a replacement. It was easier said than done. My fine veins presented a huge challenge for the nurses. After 2 attempts, ouch, by 2 different nurses, they had to call a doctor from A&E to do it for me. Thank goodness he was very good. Before bedtime, I pondered about the hours since Yoda left. Apart from the frightening solution that Dr. Dewar proposed and the failed cannulation attempts, not much had given rise to panic. As I lay in the quiet darkness, a sense of achievement and peace came to me. What tomorrow brings would be tomorrow's affair. For today, I thought I did well. 3rd April 2022, Sunday. Dr. Dewar came around mid-morning in his Sunday casuals. I almost didn't recognize him. No, I was kidding. He still looks the same, just less accentuated. Any pain, he asked. No, I am praying very hard that it doesn't come back, I answered happily. I pray very hard too. You pray! Sorry, I am just surprised. Doctors are usually not spiritual, I interrupted him. I am very spiritual. I pray every day for my patients and my family. I was at the temple this morning, he explained. This caught me by surprise. He sounded very devoted to his spiritual practice. That further endeared him to me. I was not sure why, but somehow knowing that a person of science, especially one as gutsy as him, would humble himself before God made me see him in a different light. I could not remember what else we spoke about, probably nothing significant, but he wanted to see me at his clinic after this. Again, I was wheeled across the bridge to the building where his clinic was. Clinics were not open on Sunday. The entire floor was dark, quiet, and eerie. A shadow of light was seen projected on the floor outside of Dr. Dewar's partially opened door. When I arrived, he was standing beside his ultrasound machine waiting for me. Still swollen, still not going home. Later in the afternoon, Bailey was well enough to send me a text. She suggested we catch up at one of the restaurants in the lobby for dinner. Although we communicated frequently, I had not seen Bailey for years, and the pandemic restrictions added another 2. Even when we had been in the same hospital at the same time, I still had not seen her. Different wards in different buildings would do that to you. Unlike me, she had the green light from Dr. Dewar to go home tomorrow. I was upset for still being held hostage here. It was great to see Bailey again. She was moving very cautiously with the stand in her ureter. As mentioned by Dr. Dewar, a stand would not usually cause discomfort. Calculated movements during the early days were mostly from self-conscious. That was good to know. Halfway over dinner, Bailey's husband, Bruce, video called her. It was such a sweet gesture. This might be hard to believe, but Yoda never video called me. Never. In fact, since the day we started seeing each other until now, he was also not big on phone calls when we were apart. Seeing Bailey and Bruce melted me even though I was not a romantic. Bruce was a charmingly funny man who adored Bailey earnestly. It had not always been like this for Bailey. More than a decade ago, she bravely decided to leave her first marriage that was not working, took on the role of a single mother, and independently raised 3 wonderful girls. Many today, men and women alike, still force themselves to stay in the toxic marriage because they cannot face the stigma of a broken relationship. And those who didn't refused to talk about it. I believed it was because society, in general, labelled a broken relationship a failure, and no one liked to be called a failure. Divorce was never a failure. It was a courageous decision to reclaim one's worth, find one's voice, and choose the path that aligns with one's goals and priorities. I look up to these people for their conviction and tenacity. More than half the people of my acquaintance were separated. It was never an easy decision because some choices would eventually lead to someone getting hurt, and it was our basic human nature not to want to hurt anyone or break anything unnecessarily. Yet, prolonging the inevitable, forcing a house full of people who shouldn't be together to stay together would bleed more toxic energy into our already stressful existence. I didn't push my single friends into relationships, and I didn't feel sorry for my friends who were divorced. As a friend, I was just happy that things had worked out well for them, regardless of what happened, and I would always be there without judgment if they needed someone with a neutral point of view. I had a strong opinion about living the lives we want and not the expectations of society. Bailey's bravery to let go yet still be able to provide a secure haven for her children was a testament to this acceptance. Care about what other people think, and you will always be their prisoner, quoted Lao Tzu. Hi, Consul, how are you? Bruce greeted me when Bailey faced the phone at me. I am still stuck here, but I am well, thank you. You better get here fast. Bailey's under the care of an exceedingly attractive doctor who's younger than you. I would be very worried if I were you, I teased him. Yes, I am a little suspicious myself. She's been there for too many days without complaining. He was a good sport. Bruce was a good man. I liked him the moment I met him, and I was very happy for Bailey. After all that she had been through, she deserved someone who treated her like the darling she was. After that, Bailey and I caught up some more with what had been going on for the past years in lockdown. Unknown to many, at the lowest point of my suffering from anxiety, Bailey had been there, although not in person. She had unfailingly guided me with the teachings of our faith and diverted my focus from self-pity to gratitude. I remain unconditionally indebted to her. No friendship is an accident, quoted O. Henry. Just when we were laughing about the odds of us being here, at the same hospital, for the same procedure, on the same day, and under the care of the same doctor, Bailey told me she was starting to feel her pain returning. She needed to get back to her room. And guess what? Me too. During my walk back from one building to another, Wano called. She was in the hospital lobby with more supplies for me. My back pain was coming in waves now, gradually intensifying. By the time I reached Wano, I was limping. She screamed blue murder, berating me for being careless. Looking back on my own, I resembled a recalcitrant child, staying away from my room and deliberately delaying my bedtime. I thanked Wano for getting the supplies here for me and promised her I would be going straight back to my room and staying there. I missed Dr. Devo again, even though I didn't expect him on a Sunday evening. I was quickly given my IV painkiller followed by the antibiotic. This time, when the nurse checked my temperature, I registered a fever. Dr. Devo was not going to like this, and I was smart enough to know by now I would not be going home tomorrow. 4th April 2022, Monday. You had a fever. Dr. Devo stated the obvious. But I don't have a fever now, I said smugly. Of course, you were given paracetamol, he stressed while pointing to the huge empty bottle of paracetamol hanging above my bed. I believe it was from the change in antibiotic. We have to switch back. Dr. Devo could do whatever he wanted, just no more agonizing, gnawing pain, please. Considering he was a person who made quick decisions and had little tolerance for delays, my holding back on his suggested solution, yet fighting him to send me home, must have irritated him immensely. It had already been 4 days. I surmised he should already know if there was any hope at all that my bloated kidney would drain itself. He was a highly trained and vastly experienced urologist, while I was a naive, ignorant patient who thought a tumor in the kidney was something to gamble with. By now, I knew him enough to know he had no problem being blunt. He always said exactly what he thought without any frills because he saw no need to wrap things up in empty phrases. Why had he not told me there was zero chance that my kidney would ever drain out all the contrast by itself? Was I such a nutcase that he hesitated at enforcing his plans? Or was it because no one had a drainage system like mine for him to make comparisons with? When Bailey texted to tell me she was at the lobby in my building waiting for her bill and invited me for coffee, I was only too excited to accept. I had no fever and I was not in pain. I felt fantastic about myself. When I reached the lobby, I spotted Bailey in the crowd. She was all dressed and ready to go home, just waiting for Bruce. We had a short catch-up at the cafe, and even though Bailey was still recovering from her procedure, she continued to encourage my positive demeanor, making sure I didn't fall back into my dark place, despite what the outcome of my situation might be. I promised her I would be all right. Soon it was time for Bailey to leave, so we said our goodbyes. Then I went back to my room, and yet again, the nurse told me I missed Dr. Dewar. We seemed to be enjoying a game of cat and mouse, Kim and I. It was still early in the afternoon. I knew I would see him later. True enough, I was asked to be sent to his clinic towards the end of the workday. "Oh, you're here already? I thought I had time to go to the toilet," said Dr. Dewar. "Please do. I can wait." I had nothing else to do and nowhere else to go. "It's fine. I will just have a look at your kidney first," he dismissed. "You should be taking your own advice and not whole," I nagged. I will, right after I look at your kidney," he replied. The ultrasound scan showed minimal improvement, but I thought any improvement, no matter how little, was good, right? Dr. Dewar was hesitant. "If you want to go home tomorrow, I will prepare your discharge documents and send you back with a course of antibiotics and some painkillers. But you must let me know immediately if you are not well. Do we have a deal?" said Dr. Dewar sternly. He really was treating me like a recalcitrant child, probably because I was acting like one. "Of course!" I agreed immediately. How could I not? With that, I almost skipped my way back to the ward. Before bedtime, I was on the phone with my children when Dr. Dewar appeared in my room again. "Someone needs to remind you to go home." My turn to chastise him. "I need to make sure you are all right before I send you back. Are you fine? Is there any pain?" he asked. It was ironic that with all the advancement in medical instrumentation, he could measure my temperature, my blood pressure, my pulse rate, and my oxygen level around the clock at any moment of the day he wanted, even while I was asleep. Yet he had to rely on my word for pain. "No pain," I replied. "Are you sure?" he asked again. "Of course I am sure. It's my body, remember?" This was getting irritating because somehow he didn't trust me. "Please do not lie to me." He was getting stern now, towards intimidating, almost like my school principal. "I didn't, really," I assured him. After this banter that went back and forth several times, he was finally appeased. I was telling him the truth when I said I was not in pain. The paracetamol had been turned off since this morning, so there was nothing masking my pain if there was any. That night, I slept soundly because I was not disturbed by any pain or discomfort. There was beauty in not knowing everything. 5th April 2022, Tuesday. I am asking you once again, are you in pain? Please do not lie to me. He was beginning to sound like a broken record this morning when he popped into my room. I am telling you once again, I am fine. I felt like a criminal in an interrogation room. I kept looking for the two-way mirror. I appreciated his concern. I was not ungrateful. At that moment, I truly thought I was going to be fine and ready to go home. And he let me. When dealing with people, remember that you are not dealing with creatures of logic, but creatures of emotion, quoted Dale Carnegie. Yoda came to fetch me from the hospital. We stopped for lunch before we made our journey home. I was hungry, which was a good sign. Although I ate when needed, I had not felt hungry for a long time. I dozed all the way home. Towards the evening, I didn't handle dinner well. Most of it was unfinished. I was beginning to feel nauseous and what felt like the beginning of my flank pain. I took 2 tablets of paracetamol as soon as I got home, and my pain intensity gradually increased. The paracetamol was not helping. It had gotten to full blast after 10 p.m. My breathing was heavy now. My attempt to sleep failed, and I was on the verge of screaming. I had no choice but to take a stronger painkiller. 6 April 2022, Wednesday. After I updated Dr. Devo on the pain I had the evening before, I was happy to report to him that was all and there was no more fever. However, around lunchtime, after the effects of the painkiller passed, the pain came back. "What's up?" I said. Pain came back, took another Celebrex. Dr. Devo said, "Thanks, keep me informed still." I had not been able to do much at home. Although the painkiller took care of the pain, I didn't feel well. I was very exhausted and I was lying down most of the time, yet I could not sleep. I continued to feel nauseous. I was not able to finish all my meals throughout the day, and I was beginning to get worried. At 11 p.m., I registered a high fever. At this very moment, I finally knew why Dr. Devo was reluctant to let me go. I was now 200 kilometers away from him, with a kidney that was threatening to burst and a raging fever burning my entire being. I was going to get terribly ill, and the fear of not knowing what to expect made me cry. Not wanting to alarm Yoda, I quietly texted Dr. Devo. It was late. I didn't expect him to reply. I took 2 paracetamol for my fever and went to sleep. 7th April 2022, Thursday. "What's up?" Dr. Devo said, "You need to come back." I said, "Today or tomorrow?" Dr. Devo said, "Now!" Thank you very much for listening. If you would like to keep following the story, click here to listen to the next chapter. And if you're new, you can start from the beginning by listening to the full playlist here. Don't forget to subscribe so you'll know when the next chapter is released. Until then, take care, take a deep breath, and I'll see you in the next one.